Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Seafood Explained. And today we're going to focus on the supply side of Atlantic salmon and what happened in 2023 and how does that affect at least the start of 2024 and maybe a bit into the future in 2024. With me on screen today, I have Filip, our senior seafood analyst on Salmonids. And Filip, today we're going to use your Salmon World report as a backdrop for our discussion. A good report you published a couple of weeks ago that dives into the supply side of salmonids. And what can we find in that report?
It's a quite comprehensive report, but like you mentioned, it covers mainly the supply side of the salmon industry. So what's a bit different than other reports, it covers the whole salmonid supply, both the farmed salmon and catch-off wild. And also we dig into the main markets or production areas. We have a look into the feed markets and also look into the degree of consolidation between in the different regions, and also the value chain. So the what is really the value creation in the two main regions. Finally, there's also a rank between the largest salmon farming 15. We rank 15, the top 15 salmon farming companies in the world. So it's a very good report which covers a broad range of aspects of the supply side of the industry.
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive and very good report, and as you said, it describes the overall supply of salmonids in 2023. And just to break the news right straight away, how did 23 end? Was it an increase and decrease in supply?
So overall supply of salmonids increased by 7% in 2023 compared to 2022, which takes us to 5.2 million tons whole fish equivalent production.
Yeah, and I guess that increase didn't come from the aquaculture side of it. It wasn't a harvest of raised salmonids. It was catch, maybe.
Absolutely. So perhaps surprising to some that we actually had an increase. We've been talking a lot about decreases, but you're absolutely right. So the increase is driven by a very good wild catch of salmon. And but if we look at the farmed side of salmonids, it remained quite stable with a slight decrease of 1%.
1%, and that's all species: coho, Atlantic, trout, etc.
Exactly. So even if we dig even further down a little bit and look at the Atlantic salmon only, we actually have a decrease which is larger than that, 2%, ending up at 2.8 million tons whole fish equivalent. It's a bit different across the regions, but finally it's a decrease of 2%.
Yeah, and if you look at the different regions, how did it go if you compare, like, I don't know, Europe, North America versus South America? Is it the decrease all around, or is it some that shows kind of some positive sides?
It's mainly a decrease. So in Norway, the biggest production region, has a decrease of 2.5%, while Chile has an increase of 2%, but it doesn't really compensate for the decrease in Norway nor other regions. I think worth mentioning is also Canada, which saw a significant 17% decrease.
Yeah, and 17% decrease, that's not only driven by biological issues, I guess.
Luckily not. Perhaps I don't know actually if it's luckily or not. If it's biological, maybe you could fix it yourself. But it's due to political landscape being more troublesome and difficult. That's been ongoing for several years now. But especially on the west coast of Canada, it's a jurisdiction which is hard to do salmon farming. And this is really why we have such a big decrease.
Yeah, and you told, so it's basically a decrease in Europe and North America, but so Chile is a positive player here with an increase in 23, and what's the story there?
I think they have more favorable conditions, had more favorable conditions than in Norway and Europe. So this is really why, and they have quite a high harvest. I think we'll mention that a bit later during our talk now.
Yeah, I thought Chile is interesting, and you also dug in the Salmon World report. You also look at the total value chains in each production regions, and you specifically looked at Chile and Norway, of course. But in Chile, you see over a span of years that the total value creation in the value chain is increasing and improving. Isn't that right? I can actually show it as well from our report.
Yeah. So we dig into the value chain a little bit and try to approach the industry from that angle to understand better and highlight better the changes. For Chile, I think it's been increasing the value creation there. Perhaps not particularly this year, but if you look at a period of 3 years back, there's a quite growth in value creation happening in Chile, and particularly in the on-growing phase, and perhaps a little bit also in the processing, which is a much smaller share of the value creation in total, but nevertheless increase in this area. So what we really we divide really the value chain into different steps. So the ova stage, where are the eggs coming from, and or how much is it really? The smolt phase, which is happening in the freshwater, and the on-growing phase in seawater. The transport of live fish through the processing and logistics to the market. I think also it's kind of up to date way or angle to approach the industry. Not only it highlights the changes happening in Chile, but also in Norway, we expect more changes to happen within the value chain. So last webinar, we talked a lot about the resource rent tax, which happens in a specific stage in the value chain, which is the on-growing phase so the phase at sea. So we're expecting a shift, so less value creation happening there, and more perhaps in the smolt area of the value chain. And we actually can see a little bit of that already when I compare 22 towards versus 23. There's the smolt growth in value creation is higher and kind of increasing a little bit than the average the last 5 years. So that's due to the tax, which creates incentives to have less value creation in that area. And also, it's not only about the incentives. It's also more important to get this right for the farmers to actually highlight what is the actual smolt, I mean, value creation in the smolt area of the business. This has not really been an important topic before, or not as important, but it's more important now. And I think a depiction like that shows that very well.
Yeah, it's for sure interesting, and I think we will see kind of costs or value creation being put onto different parts that are growing, especially in Norway, coming into 24 at least. But when you looked at the total value creation, I think you ended up with around $7 billion totally in Chile, and that tells us something that is good, and it was almost a double in Norway. But behind this value creation is companies, right? It's producers, and you also do in the Salmon World report a ranking of producers, like a top 15, and I guess 2023 yet again was a year of consolidations, and not a lot of them, but it still happened, and the one that did happen was quite significant. So you have a change in top 5 of producers, right? I guess Maui is still on top, but there's some changes beneath.
Absolutely. So Movi is remains as the largest player, maintaining a 15% share of total farmed salmonid volumes, which is quite consistent with 2022. And but like you mentioned, there's been some consolidation, which has changed the ranking a little bit between the companies. And I think that's interesting in itself, but also the reason why we have it is also to give a picture of what is really the degree of consolidation. And we, for instance, see that the top 15 companies, they control around 66 or 65% of the global harvest volumes.
Yeah, so quite a lot of volumes on a few hands, or big hands, or what you wish to say. But yeah.
Another thing I want to mention as well is between the top 15, or not really only the top 15, but the top 5-10 companies also. This is a stronger presence of other regions than Norway. So we have a stronger presence of Chilean companies, which I believe is nice, and especially since the ranking has been dominated by a lot of Norwegian players.
Yeah, and I guess you have Cook as well, moving up there with the acquisition in Australia as well. So a bit more variations in the top, and that's always good, I think. So if you kind of sum up 23 a bit, it was a kind of a decrease in production, and a lot of that decrease, I think, is driven by the second half, in Norway and Chile, and so 23 happened, and then we move into 24. We have the first quarter is eaten then harvest. But what would you kind of say is the kind of, what do we bring into 24 from 23?
I wouldn't go even further back, actually, to 2022. I believe 2022 started kind of a trend, so where the result is lower harvest weight and higher loss. And similarly, in 2023, we see a decline in supply, which has consequences for 2024. And it's like we've mentioned several times, but still it's the most important factor. So there are biological challenges in Norway with due to lower temperatures, which creates more winter wounds and in the salmon. There's no effective vaccine for that, and on top of that, there's been jellyfish attacks, which is combined is not a good combination. So that results in lower harvest weight, higher loss, and also some quality issues.
Yeah, that was for Norway. So we can see it here with year-over-year harvest, month for month, and then the Q1 started, yes, exactly as you said, and driven by biological issues and health-related issues, I would say. And I think the story for Chile is when you when you look at Chile, it was fantastic last year, right? And but then again, they have some other drivers there affecting the start of 21 because they have a negative run rates on their smolt releases. So they basically released less smolt in number of fish than they harvested in number of fish, and also if you have to count in losses, so they're writing checks they can't write, right? And that effect comes into to Q1 2024, and also on top of that, the algae bloom in January, but that mainly affected harvest-ready fish, so it was not substantial, but still it happened, and it didn't help February, I guess. So we see it here with year-over-year harvest as well in Chile, and also that negative run rate will affect Chile massively throughout 2024. We see a decline in harvest quarter by quarter in Chile, and total year-over-year for 24 down 5% as we see the world right now. But if you skip back to Norway again, also we can take that story again, because there's stuff happening there as well in Norway with harvest and quality issues, and we see the loss here. But everyone has been talking about production fish, and I think everyone knows what that is now. But still, I think it could be interesting to go in and see and actually look at sales from Norway, because there's some drivers behind here happening, right?
Yeah, so there are really two things in it's really it's Norwegian grading and kind of Norwegian issues, but it has effect on the overall market. So although the production grade is specific to Norway, it has create some strange dynamics in the market price of salmon. So I think the two main topics have been the all-time high prices which happened in Easter, and the high prices in the Q1. And also the production fish, and those two elements are actually quite closely related.
Yeah, I think also it kind of split the markets a bit. You have kind of from Norway usually a whole fish superior grade product shipped out to globally, but now we have, I think the last quarter, just in tons, I think it was 30,000 tons more fresh fillets out of Norway from than compared to 2023, and we see it in the export statistics as well. So you have a kind of a split in what's available for the market as well. I guess that will affect prices and the market dynamics.
Absolutely. So and the question is for some might be why. Basically the Norwegian production grade. So it's if you get that production grade on your fish, you cannot export the fish. So you can process the fish, fix the issues, because some of it is the fish is fully edible. It's just some parts of it doesn't shouldn't get into the consumer's eyes, but it's fully healthy and edible. But it's a ban of export on that. It's only superior quality which can be exported out of Norway. So that creates so a lot of and since we have record high shares of this grading now, I think the Food Safety Authority said revealed that it was around 33%, which is very high. That has actually created more fillets, more export of fillets to Europe, and this is why we see that on the graph. It's the export of fillets from Norway is much higher than the previous year.
And I guess this affects the price as well, or does it? We see record high prices in over the Easter for fresh superior salmon on the Nasdaq here, shown here on Edge. We see close to 114 NOK per kilos exported out of Norway, but this isn't the whole picture, right?
Absolutely not. So I think to understand a little bit why we have the high price, and we need to look at the kind of what is the definition of the price, and how it's kind of narrowed down. So what does it really comprise? So I think we see also that on the trade updates coming from the companies, they say kind of they reveal that the price achievement of the Nasdaq salmon price hasn't occurred, and it's a kind of good reason for that. The performance can be good, but the Nasdaq price salmon is quite a narrow definition, while the companies normally sell a wide range of salmon products, and this is why they don't have the same achievements. And also it could be that a non-Norwegian company have the same, not having any bad gradings, still is not able to achieve the same prices. So let's look more into what is this price really, the Nasdaq salmon price. It's a spot price, so Norwegian salmon going to Europe by car in the spot, and it's sold in the spot market. It has specific weightings of salmon, so 3 to 6 kilos, and it's of superior quality. And this is important to know when looking at the price, because it's not really the high prices is not really driven by extremely or fantastic demand in Europe. It's driven by the lack of supply of fresh whole fish. So first of all, in general, there's less fresh whole fish. Then there's then there's less superior quality available, which also affects the price. And when you have a small amount available and already, and in addition to that, a good portion of the salmon is sold on contract, there's not much fresh whole salmon sold to Europe in the spot market, which hikes up the price. So it's actually quite complex matter. We cover this more deeply in the 1 or 2 weeks on Edge. And I think it's very important to have that understanding when looking both at the performance of the different companies, also to if you're a kind of participant in the market on either side. So I think with that with that explanation, which will come in a separate article next week or in 2 weeks, I think this will give a good explanation of why we have this particular dynamic now.
Yeah, so we actually have a supply side that's driving prices up, and not demand push it. It's probably a push and pull there, but it's mainly driven by the supply side now. And the supply side is interesting in Norway. It's restricted, I would say, and heavily regulated, but there's a small opening for supply growth, at least production growth in Norway, and supply is kind of the result of the good work. But let's hope it will be more supply. But the traffic lights have been lit, and we have painted the coast in red, yellow, and green. And there's kind of everything is rigged and ready for capacity auction coming into the summer, right? So anything news there?
Some news since last webinar. So the growth percent is ready and set to 6%, but that's not really the final growth. And we're waiting for the auction format. This is not yet revealed. But the question is about how much exception will be given. So as you mentioned, the Norway is painted in the different colors. So red means basically that you lose capacity. However, there's exception to the rule. If you have based on good or low lice figures, you might get some of this growth capacity, which is for sale, not through the auction, but through the fixed price, and that's regardless of the area you operate in. So that's why the growth percent, I mean, it's set to 6, but the decrease is not finalized yet because of this exemption in the rule. Another thing which has been revealed is the minimum price, which typically is, I think there's actually highlighted it's going to be the same price. The auction price is going to start on this price, and this is also the price for buying more capacity on fixed price, and that's 170,000 kroners in per ton, which is quite high, and it's back to 2020 levels. So that's interesting to see, and I'm quite excited to see what auction format it's going to be, and how the auction is going to play out.
Yeah, I think we have to wait and see, right? So we'll come back to that later. But we started to run out of time here for a little chat, and I'll try to sum it up and see if I learned anything at all. But we started with the Salmon World as a backdrop, and then an overall supply of salmon needs to the global market. And in 23 we saw an increase in volume, quite substantial actually, but that was only driven by catch of wild salmonids or wild salmon up in North America and Russia. And if you narrow it down and looked at aquaculture and production of especially Atlantic salmon, there's a decrease in 23 in Europe, both in Norway, Faroe Islands, UK, also North America, in Canada, with very special circumstances there. But Chile was on the positive note there with a 5% increase. Was that what you told me in 2023? So good volumes coming out of Chile with high value creation as well, and good performance indicators. So they're doing well, but there's a backdrop to that as well, because Chile is writing checks they can't raise, and the run rates of smolt is a negative run rate. So the story is they're putting in less than they're taking out. So, and we see that already in Q1 in 24 with the massive drop in harvest volumes in Chile. The problems in Norway continues from 23 into 24 with quality issues. We see some slight increase in harvest weight now, but that's to be expected this time of year. But the jellyfish, winter ulcers, and sea lice were big problems end of 23, and we kind of hit us a bit in 24 as well. And that gives in Norway a very kind of interesting situation with a lot of production fish, right? So there's less superior whole fish exported from Norway, and there's a huge portion of fresh fillets and frozen fillets exported from Norway, and that gives kind of an implication both on the supplies of what kind of products are available, but also the Nasdaq price, which is artificially high, you could say in some of those. For those who get it, it's not artificial, but it won't be reflected in the reports to the producers or companies, because one, they're not only selling superior fish fresh on truck to Europe. Two, there's a lot of fillets and reprocessing in Norway, and there's also a contract share to put in there. So I think we have to have all those things in mind when we think about how profitable those companies are going to be, which they are going to be, but still. And in the end, you talked a bit about traffic lights. Okay, the light's been lit, but the auction's not, and capacities, it's not ready yet. So wait and see. But overall, 24, stable or a bit down on Atlantic salmon sides on the harvests, and Norway down, Chile down. Faroe Island is bouncing back with double-digit growths in Q1 in 24. So that's the story there. And everything we talked about here, you can find 2 places. The first part of it was the Salmon World report, which is published now and available. And also we played a bit around in Edge on our portal here to show some figures there. So go to kontali.com to ask for a free trial if you're not a customer yet. And I think we're going to run out. Those of you going to Barcelona next week, safe travels. All the rest, you can envy your colleagues. And talk soon. Anything to add, Filip?
No, that I will envy my colleagues. So if you're not going to Barcelona, you can stay with me. Just give me a call or ask a question if you have any. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, thank you, and bye-bye, and see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.